Pfaff has a feature called precise positioning that if you master, you can get yourself out of any jam and also align up something to a previous design instantly, down to the very stitch point, and make things align perfectly. Have you ever accidentally took your fabric out of the hoop and then realized you had one more color to stitch? We all get excited, think we're done, and then before we know it, we're trying to get the fabric back in the hoop. It's not getting there just right. The precise positioning feature I'm going to show you will make sure that any mistake that happens can be rectified. So what I'm going to do is I have already stitched out this design, but I'm going to use it as an example of how to get back into position. So I've gone ahead and actually picked that same design, and it of course came in, middle of the hoop, but on this one I had actually moved it to the lower part of the hoop. So you are doing this on the embroidery stitch out screen. And right here, where the little picture of the butterfly and kind of the arrows that are moving around are listed. So here's how it's going to be. There is two steps or two groupings of steps that you're going to take. In your book, it will also define each of these steps a little bit more, but I'm going to walk you through it. We're really just going to be using the first group here for getting it back in because the item didn't actually come out of the hoop. Now, if I ever need to move it and then twist it, like you need to hoop a little crooked because it went back in, the line's like not lined up, that's where the second part comes in. So you can actually truly hoop crooked, as we say at our store, and be perfectly on spot. So it doesn't even have to be straight, just get it in the hoop and this area of your machine will take over and make it turn out perfectly straight. All right, so first thing we're going to do is the step one is selected, and if it's not, touch it so it turns green. Anytime that we're on the first part, the butterfly, it's indicating that you need to do something to the screen area. See this little green plus that's jumping around? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a part of the design I want to find the exact spot. Now this is where zooming is going to really be your friend. Touch the magnifying glass, and I'm going to touch the first one, which means when I touch the screen, it's going to zoom in on that exact point. So that green plus, let's move it to that exact stitch. Once you get close, maybe with your stylus, you can go ahead and move it into exact position. When I say exact, I mean exact. All right, let's zoom out just to kind of see the whole picture. That plus is locked onto the little point of that flower. Now we're going to go down to where the hoop picture is. So the hoop actually now moves. When you see a picture of a hoop, that means you're looking at the hoop, because this is what you're going to do is you're going to move the needle, which is locked to that little point on the flower. We're going to move the needle to this exact stitch. So right now you can kind of even drag the design into position and get fairly close. Here we go. We kind of jump around. There. Now, as soon as it gets close, I'm going to reach over and turn my hand wheel down and make my needle come a little closer to the fabric. Now I can see it a little bit more. Ah, my little message. I love this one, and it makes sense too. It says raise the needle. Well, I know that I want to be fairly close, and that is why it gives you a little box that says allow lower needle position. So if you check that box, that just means that you're going to be a responsible adult, not put your needle down into your fabric and then ask it to move. So I'm going to just hover. I'm really close, but now I can see a lot better. And every time I don't raise my needle, that message won't come up. So that's kind of a little, are you sure you want to do that? I love that part. Yes, I'm sure. So now what I can do is just tap, tap, tap until my needle gets even closer to the spot on my fabric I want to do. Remember how close we got it? Get this just as close. So I'm just touching it. And every time we touch, if you look at the numbers here, it's moving 1/10 of a millimeter. You can totally get exactly where you want to go. I use this precise positioning if I'm rehooping. So if I had taken this out of the hoop and I wanted to put the next design back here and I wanted it to touch right at this point, what I would do is get it back in there. I also would have lines drawn on the fabric so I would know how to keep it all straight and going where I wanted to go. But right now, That's exactly where this design is now back on track. And if I stitched it, it would stitch exactly in the same holes over the first design. If I needed to rotate the design, so then you go over to the second step. Once again, the first stitch becomes a lock point, and I could come over here and find, for example, the other point. And now what it'll do, and I'm going to just show you, is it will swing to the left or to the right, whichever way I'm doing it. So it's locked right here at that first point, and what it's doing is like a pendulum, swinging the design into position. So if you weren't hoop straight, you are now, and it can perfectly kind of connect 2 points that were close, but you weren't exactly close, and it can bring that into position. Once you have everything where you want it to be, when you touch the check mark, your design has tilted or positioned, and you'd be able to restart exactly where you need it to be, maybe jump to that last color that you forgot, or start the second of, say, 10 hoopings that you're about to stitch.